Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Sharing the Link. It's a ChildLink's program, a discussion program whereby we'll be diving into a number of social issues. My name is Tiana, and I'm the Advocacy and Communications Officer here at ChildLink. This afternoon, I have with me Miss Dennise Gittens and Miss Denica Henry, two counselors. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon to you, Tiana.
Yes, it is great to have you here. And of course, this afternoon, our conversation is once again going to be focusing on sexual grooming. So we'll be hearing your perspectives on the topic, and maybe we can shed some light on more information that we did not get to cover in last week's discussion. So before we get into our conversation, can you give us a brief introduction of who you are and on the work that you do?
Okay, good afternoon, Tiana again. Good afternoon to our viewers on Facebook, and good afternoon to you, Denica, as well. My name is Dennise Gittens, and I'm one of the counselors that is attached to ChildLinK CAC Region 3. What we do at CAC means that it's Child Advocacy Center, and what we do here is that we do forensic interview for children that were sexually abused, and after the interview, we do counseling for both the child and the parent.
Denica?
Hi everyone, my name is Denica Henry. I am a counselor and I am working in the Purpose region. Ms. Dennise would have touched on our functions really well. I am in the position for a while now, and so far I can say that it has tremendously blessed my heart to be able to touch the lives of not just children, but of parents across the Region 6 area.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And before I get into the first question, I just want to tell everyone watching that this conversation is actually possible because of our 1000 Voice project, which is funded by the Delegation of the European Union here in Guyana. And also now, when it comes to conversations surrounding grooming, it is important for persons to know how it is linked to child sexual abuse. And so it is important for them to understand the concept of child sexual abuse. So can you ladies tell me in your own words, what exactly is child sexual abuse?
Okay. Child sexual abuse is an interaction between a child and an adult or another child taking part in sexual activity. The activities may include physical contact, which includes penetration, and that could be either rape or it could be oral sex. Or they may be non-penetrative acts, such as masturbation, kissing, rubbing, and touching outside of the child's clothing. Then there is also non-contact activities, such as involving children in looking at pornographic materials or being involved in the production of sexual activities. Use of sexual languages towards a child or encourage children to behave in sexual inappropriate ways. Then there's another form of sexual abuse, and that abuse involves a child who is capable of informing or giving consent while it's against the law. And that bracket falls with girls or boys who might be in the age bracket of 12 to 15. That age bracket because they can speak for themselves, they know right from wrong. We know that in Guyana, the legal age for sexual activity is 16. So even though that child may be between ages of 12 to 15 and may give consent, it is still illegal. And that illegal activity, there's a penalty attached to that activity, sexual abuse.
You can go ahead, Denica.
Almost the important points, but basically any sexual activity with a minor under the age of 16 is referred to as child sexual abuse, whether that child would have consented or not. And it can be from touching, looking, and even holding of, say, genitalia, someone making a child hold their private parts or touch their private parts as well. That is also referred to as abuse. So anything that goes against, what a child should be exposed to, can be categorized as child sexual abuse, as Ms. Dennise would have rightfully categorized earlier.
Yes, and on that note now, can you describe sexual grooming?
Sexual grooming is a calculated, horrific act that is planned by the perpetrator against their victims. It's a process of a person slowly manipulating or getting friendly with the child and their parents and the environment with the intent to commit the sexual abuse. Now, sexual abuse does not just happen instantaneously like that. Like I said before, it's a slow, manipulative progress act that the perpetrator, the first thing, so he gets to know the family, he or she, for the perpetrator could either be male or female, bonds with the victim and the family, gets to know them, know what they like, know what they dislike. Then that perpetrator could be someone who feels a need. They realize that the family has one need or another. So he or she would be a good Samaritan and provide whatever the family need with the intent of committing the sexual abuse. So the perpetrator has access to the family now, has access, and because of that access, the perpetrator plans now to separate or to isolate the child from the family, or it could be friends, because sexual abuse doesn't just happen in the home. It could happen at the neighbor, it could happen at school, it could happen while children are playing games. It could happen anywhere, even in a bus. It could happen because we know that touching also is part of sexual abuse. Now, after the perpetrator would have isolated the child, then the abuse would start. And the abuse would start by innocent touches. Now, if that child is accustomed to hugging, the perpetrator would hug the child, would touch the child on the shoulder, a tap on the leg, and then the touches progresses. And then when the touches progresses, then before the child can know what is happening, then the perpetrator puts fear in the child. If you tell anybody, nobody would not believe you. Or if you tell mommy, I will kill you. So the perpetrator takes control by putting fear into that child, whether it's a boy or a girl.
Yes, Ms. Dennise. And Denica, I know Ms. Dennise touched on a number of points there. Can you give your addition to that?
Well, I'll say in addition to that, sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. The touching can also come in the form of accident. Sometimes it starts accidentally. Sometimes someone might accidentally, rub a child the wrong way, and they might find pleasure in it. There is a psychological factor behind why persons, or there's psychological reasoning behind why an individual might find themselves, being attracted towards a younger child, whether it be a boy or a girl. some persons act out their fetishes on children. And it starts with simple things like Ms. Dennise highlighted. And in some areas, the most common form of getting children to do certain things is either by threat or by exchanging money or giving them money. Because we know that poverty is a very serious problem in our country. And because of that, sometimes for 100, 200, for very menial sums of money, children engage in activities with adults.
Okay, and when it comes to sexual grooming, majority of the time, the signs, are not always obvious, and most times, of course, hidden. If a child realizes he or she is being sexually groomed, how do you think they should respond? What are the next steps that they should take?
They should definitely confide in an adult, a trusted individual. I know that can be difficult, especially when threats against their life or the lives of their loved ones are made, but they must try as much as possible to tell someone who can, stand up for them.
Added to what Denica would have said, for what should they look for? Now, how would they know what to look for? Firstly, their parents, guardians, caretakers, teachers, whoever works with children or comes into contact with children has to know what sexual abuse is, has to know what grooming is, and has to know what are some of the tactics perpetrators use. And when they are informed, then they educate the children. Now, when those children are educated, and educating children should be as young as 2 years old, when they can talk, they can walk, they have the understanding. We train our children, everything else, but we don't train them about touches, safe touches and unsafe touches. So how would they know what to look for? By parents, caregivers, whoever, like I said before, work with children, being informed and passing on that information to children so they would know exactly what to look for. And like Denica would have said, once they realize what is happening, then they can reach out to someone.
And you brought up a very important point there in terms of what to look for and grooming tactics and so on. So can we delve into some more of these grooming tactics that children and even parents and so on can look out for?
Okay, like I said earlier, hugging. Now, if you're hugging a child, you shouldn't brace that child. So the perpetrator would use hugging. A parent might see it and they might say, oh, it's nothing, because they don't know. But if they know, then they will know what to do. So hugging, wrestling, tickling the child, because parents, we see this as normal, especially if it's an uncle, it's a father, somebody that the child is attached to. So these are some of the tactics that the perpetrators would use.
Well, Ms. Denny said wrestling, but I think our term, the most popular term is ramping. You find that sometimes you play rough, or individuals play rough with children. They try to hug them, they squeeze them, they pinch them up, they rough them up. You find that commonly happening in a lot of homes. And also sending a child over to a neighbor's home and them taking a, maybe a particularly long time to get back, or even a child going over to a neighbor much more than usual, or simply a child just going over to anybody else's house, and you're not checking on them, you're not looking into, this child has been gone for a particularly long period of time, let me see what's happening, what's going on. Because in today's society, really and truly, you don't want to instill fear in parents out there, but we just have to encourage parents to get a bit more extra cautious in terms of who their children is exposed to and for whatever periods of time, because things that you might have done long ago, that you might have been comfortable with sleepovers, boys and girls sleeping in the same room, the same bedroom, cousins coming over during family events and so on. You know, now you have to be extra careful because of the rampant increase of child sexual abuse and also grooming tactics. And the thing is that you also have to acknowledge that some children, they might act out promiscuous behavior because something might have been shown to them, or they might have been exposed to some sexual behavior. So for parents who might see children acting a certain way, rubbing up themselves on somebody, or staring, or fixation issues, they must remember that, this could be a sign that something happened to this child, and investigate.
Yes, thank you for that. And also, I was reading something the other day about this point whereby perpetrators, some of them, they would plan exactly on when to start their grooming, when to start grooming, and on the conversation of grooming, sometimes persons might think that, it's just little children, but some perpetrators would look at a teenager and they would plan exactly when, know exactly how many months that person has to become legal age. So they would start their grooming just, I think this is a very important topic that we can touch on.
It is crazy that people actually have that mindset, and they're waiting on a child.
Yes. So go on, Ms. Dennise.
Yes, I was agreeing with what Denica said and what you said as well. Because many times we know that the perpetrator is somebody that the victim would know. So many times I ask myself, how could you, as a person that this child know, sit back and have these thoughts towards these children that many times you see when they born, when they grow, and then to decide that you want to do this to this child. So on that note, just like was said earlier, I would want to encourage parents to look out for these tactics of the perpetrators. Don't allow nothing to pass you by. Because sometimes we see an act and we brush it under the carpet and say, oh, they're playing, not knowing that the perpetrator is grooming that child. And I want our audience to know that it's not just girls are being perpetrated, there's boys as well. So look out for your girls and look out for your boys.
Yes, and you mentioned boys are also victims. When it comes to boys speaking out about abuse and so on, most of them are afraid because of the stereotypes that surrounds the topic. How can parents make their child more comfortable, get them to speak out more about abuse and so on?
Parents themselves have to be comfortable about discussing sex with their children. We know that, because of how we would have grown up, the cultural taboos and certain things, children must be seen and not heard, and they mustn't be around big people conversation. And sex has always been prescribed or described as a big people conversation. A lot of us don't find out about sex until we reach high school, and then our friends are introducing us to the topic because our parents never talked to us. They never taught us the right thing or the wrong thing. And a lot of parents are like, oh my gosh, I don't want my child to know about this, or that is not for them. That child already knows, or that child is on their way to knowing, and school, their second home, they learn so much here. So if you are not giving them the right information, they're out there getting information, and in some cases inaccurate.
Definitely. Indeed, they should tell someone, but how would they tell someone if they don't trust that person? So that child needs to have a good relationship with that adult. Sometimes they may not be able to speak with the parent, but they can speak with the teacher for they feel more comfortable. They could speak with a neighbor. So I would encourage that young man or that young girl, tell someone that you trust. Keep telling until someone believes what you say. And then when you tell, the person that you tell, they can report the matter to the nearest police station. They can also report the matter to Child Protection Agency. And we have them in Region 3, we have them in Berbice, we have Child Protection Agency in Georgetown. I want to impress on our viewers. It is important to know that grooming is a sexual offense. And that, please do not allow certain things that you see or you observe pass you by. Investigate, keep looking, ask questions. And in that way, when you develop that relationship with that child, they will come to you and they will tell you what's going on. Sometimes for some children, since they get the first touch, they would inform someone. So yes, telling someone and telling someone that you trust.
Definitely. And I think conversations surrounding sex and so on with children, parents need to start, having those conversations with children as young as possible, because parents are sometimes afraid to speak about sex when children are around, and that is what makes them, sometimes afraid of talking about the topic, because in schools and so on, when teachers would bring up the term sex and so on, kids would laugh or they wouldn't want to speak about it and so on. So these conversations definitely need to start. Parents definitely need to start having them with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Just before we go, is there anything else on the topic that you ladies would like to touch on?
Yes, I would like to say that we socialize girls different to boys. We show girls love, we hug them, we allow them to show their emotions. And when it comes to a boy, we socialize them different. Many times, sometimes a boy is hurt. He might fall down and he might come running. And then the parent or whoever say, shut your mouth, why are you crying? You're a boy. You need to be strong. Man up. So in that way, when we encourage the boy to behave like that, you encourage him not to speak, not to show emotions. So for me, re-socializing our children in the whole. And how can parents do that? They have to be informed. They have to be informed of sexual abuse. They have to know that sexual abuse is prevalent in our country. It's happening every day. It's happening right now as we speak. Create that safe space for that young man. And when you create that safe space for that young man, then he will come. He will come and express his feeling just like the young lady. And added to that, I would also like to say that if a young man is listening, I just want him to know that what he may be going through or what he have went through, even if a young lady is listening, a young girl or some adult, what you are going through, what you've been through, it should not have happened. It should not have happened to you. It shouldn't. It's never your fault, and it's always the fault of the adult. And I want you to know that you can get help. You can get help if you reach out. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Denica?
Yes. I would like to say that not only must our parents be informed, but they must be involved in a child's life. The more informed and involved you are, the more abreast you can be kept with what is happening, and any mood changes, any changes in that child, you will be able to pick up, like that, because with your child, this is your child's preference, this is their favorite, their likes, their dislikes. We have so many parents, and I'm not saying to be their best friend, because of course you still need to be a parent, and finding that balance, that might be hard. But you have to be able to, know your child the way you would want to be known or know your friends. So many of us, we don't even know what our child's favorite colors are. We don't know what they like to eat. We don't know their hobbies. Sometimes when you ask parents, so what is your child doing after school? Can they make it for, counseling or so on? Oh yes, yes, yes. And then the child would be like, oh no, I have this and that to do. And then the parent might be like, oh, I didn't know that they were doing that. We're not saying that you want to be spying on your children or keeping tabs 24/7 in that regard, but be involved in your child's life. And if you don't know, never be afraid to ask and to learn more about what is happening out there. It takes a village to raise a child, and there are resources right within your community that you know can be a support system, a strong support system for you as a parent if you're struggling. Because I know we have a lot of young parents, a lot of inexperienced parents, a lot of financially challenged parents. All right, so we have persons out there, and I'm encouraging you, don't ever feel like you have to be going this journey of parenting your child alone, and especially parenting a child who would have been exposed to child sexual abuse. And also for parents themselves or individuals who are watching right now or who would have experienced abuse as young children. I know that, you keeping that in your heart, you keeping that within yourself, never telling anybody that thing eats away at you. And there are signs that show that there are repeated cases where if a child was abused, if you investigate or you look back or you find out, you might understand that that parent would have also been affected or assaulted as a child. And that parent never sought help, that parent never confided in anybody, and now the same thing has happened to their children. So we need to be more careful and more cautious of the people in our environment, and we have to be more involved with our children.
Yes, thank you very much. And of course, we all have a responsibility to get involved and of course to protect children from any form of abuse. And on that note, I want to thank you ladies for taking the time out this afternoon to come here on our program, sharing the link to share your knowledge. Some very important points came out in our conversation this afternoon. So once again, thank you very much. And I definitely look forward to chatting with you guys in the future.
Thank you, Tiana, and of course, thank you to ChildLinK and to our donors for making this possible. I do encourage all of our viewers to stay tuned.
Yes, and of course, once again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This was Sharing the Link. I am Tiana, the Communications Officer here at ChildLinK. This conversation was possible because of our 1000 Boys project, which is funded by the European Union here in Guyana.